All right, everyone, welcome back to the show today. We have kind of an unusual segment. And I teased in before the last break that we were going to talk about comic books, and that is kind of true, but not entirely, because we're going to talk about a particular story of our guest today. And today's guest is a friend of one of our College Coach educators, which is probably not the most important thing on his resume, but for our purposes, we care about it because it's what brought him here. We've got Blake Kobashigawa, who is the Senior Vice President at IDW Publishing. And IDW Publishing primarily creates comics, right, Blake? Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you all do at IDW?
Sure. Yeah. And really nice to be here. Nice to meet you as well.
Glad to have you.
IDW Publishing is we're the fourth or fifth largest publisher, comics publisher in the U.S. and North America. Really, we publish a ton of different types of product, whether it be comics, single issue comics, graphic novels, amongst a lot of different genres. So some of our bigger books include licensed properties like Ninja Turtles, Sonic the Hedgehog, Transformers, G.I. Joe, My Little Pony, you name it. We kind of cover a pretty wide swath of product on the license side. That means publishing product that other people own, like other brands and stuff like that. We also have, we also do original graphic novels based on people like Congressman John Lewis. There's a book called March that won the National Book Award a few years ago. We published a series of graphic novels from him. A book called They Called Us Enemy by George Takei, of Star Trek fame, about his time in the internment camps when he was a young boy, which has won a bunch of awards. It was our best-selling book last year. And then we also do a bunch of original IP, things like Lock and Key, which is now a series on Netflix, written by an author named Joe Hill, and a bunch of other licensed properties that have gone, original properties that have gone on to media and other things like that. So a lot of different products, graphic novels. We publish around 500, 600 products a year, which include like weekly or monthly periodical comic series. But yeah, it is a very alive and kicking business. A lot of people ask me, oh, do comics still come out every month? Like, yes.
Absolutely.
Comics still come out every month.
Absolutely.
A lot of them in print. Print is the majority of our business. So yeah, it's very much alive and kicking.
That's great. I mean, it almost sounds like with comics, there's almost this retro appeal in the way that there is with vinyl records, for example, that people are really into reading it in that original kind of medium. There's something special about having those pages in your hands. So as the senior vice president, what's your daily interaction with that kind of content, or what is your role kind of look like there?
Yeah. So in my role, I'm overseeing sales, marketing, talent relations, content strategy, and our direct to consumer operations. So our e-commerce web store and our mobile apps. So I have quite a bit of oversight. You can tell by that my day-to-day really changes. Some days it's about, hey, how do we maximize the sales of this comic that's coming out? Another day it's, we have this PR piece on one of our authors, where can you take a look at it and make sure the messaging's right? Other days it's talking to a creator and making sure they feel comfortable at the company. Other days it's talking about exclusives we have on our web store. So it really, really changes day to day, which is fun, which is super fun. But at the same time, I just kind of have to have my eye on a lot of different balls that are in the air. Yeah.
Keep you on your toes a little bit. Yeah. So when you describe those different responsibilities, as someone who works in college admission, or people who might be listening to this, you think, okay, well, Blake probably got a degree in business or marketing, maybe communications, could have been digital media, right? Because comics are digital, there's some digital media, maybe art. But my guess would be probably something in business. In order to be the senior vice president of a big publishing company, that's probably what he did. Is that right? Is that a good guess, what you studied when you were in college?
That is a good guess, but it would be...
It's wrong.
Right? No, it's wrong. Yeah, it's not the right answer. I was actually, I was a music major in college.
Okay. So for those who had music, you come and collect your winnings. If that was your guess, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Yeah, I get this question a lot from people, just, especially internally at the company, like, oh, where'd you go to school? What'd you major in?
Yeah.
And most of them are stunned to hear that it's not economics or say, I didn't go to a business school. I didn't do any of that. I only have my undergraduate degree in music, and this is my job.
Well, I like to tell, high school students, I think, that are interested in certain fields, that it can be really helpful to do an informational interview with somebody who already occupies that space and just hear a little bit about what their path towards that look like. And usually when students do that, they're really surprised, because it's not as though students say, all right, this is what I want to do professionally. I want to be a publisher for comics, and I'm going to go get this particular major in order to make that happen. Now, there are some exceptions for that in certain kinds of fields, but I think the majority of jobs that are out there, it's very hard to find the specific academic program that's going to lead you directly into that job. Never mind the fact that it's hard to know when you're 18 years old what job you want to have 15 years later. What do you think are the critical moments in your path to where you are that help to get you in this position? Are they connected more to your undergraduate studies, or are they a consequence of experiences you had afterward?
I mean, a little bit of both, I would say, but mostly the experiences I had afterwards.
Okay.
The things that are applicable to my life about my college education and experience are about being there, and about the grind of having to learn and the grind of having to learn without such a rigid structure. Really being on my own and not having to really be anywhere except for when I chose to be somewhere. Managing that time, managing my studies, really digging deep into something that I really cared about, which was music, which is still music. That experience is really applicable to my work and to my job. I took a lot of really important lessons about diligence and hard work, things like that from my major, because I had to do all of those things with something I was super passionate about. But at the same time, I don't talk about Phrygian scales in my work. I mean, I don't think I've said the word Phrygian scales in 15 years.
Well, glad I can have you to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. No, if nothing else, that's what came up today.
Great opportunity.
But yeah, I most of what has formed where I am now is through my experience. And I wouldn't say that for every major. Obviously, if you want to be a doctor, you should probably go into the sciences. If you want to be a city planner, you should probably be an engineering major. But for where I am in my business, it's just I work with a ton of people. My VP of sales was a English major, I think. Our marketing major was, I think she was like a fine arts major, something like that. I mean, it's more, I mean, to me, especially in this field, it's more about your experience and being in the business and learning the business and caring about the business, caring about what you do and caring about the process of how you get there. I'm not saying that you can't get to where I am without, if you have a sales degree or if you have a business degree, yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, it's really been about kind of not to be kind of cheesy or anything, but it's been really about the journey, about getting here. That's
process is one of the biggest things. We just had a show a couple of weeks ago where we talked about students that were most successful in the college application process. And it was the ones who were focused more on the journey, who were really committed to that aspect of process, who really felt like it's not about where I'm going to get in at the end of this, but in my confidence in what I'm submitting, what I'm putting together as the measure of my success in this space. So I went to a small liberal arts college. I studied philosophy. That doesn't really put you in a position where you're on track for any kind of professional outcome. So I totally, everything that you're saying really resonates with me. I want to try and get you back into, let's say, your senior year, or maybe even just after your senior year of college, and your sense of what was next. Like, can you remember what you perceived your ability to be professionally, or what your thoughts were about your coming career? Because I think one big concern that a lot of people have is, if I study music, I'm going to get to the end of my 4 years and not know what's next. What was that like for you at the end of that undergrad experience?
It was nerve-wracking.
Yeah,
for sure. I remember I remember not really knowing what I wanted to do. I had a bunch of different passions, but ultimately, I didn't know how employable I was. Certainly, I mean, I graduated. Keep in mind, I graduated in 2007, which was right
Me
before
too.
the
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a great time for jobs, generally
Oh,
speaking. So I did have a great bit of nervousness there, but overall, I found that as I started interviewing for things and going through the interview track, nobody cared. I mean, they just said, "Oh, great, graduated from school, sounds awesome."
yeah.
The type of jobs I was applying for, I wasn't in a trade, so it wasn't like they were looking to see if I did a certain, studied a certain thing where I'd have some baseline knowledge. I wasn't applying to be a lab tech or anything like that. So, yeah, I just had a huge amount of trepidation, just like going out day to day, thinking if I was good enough. But I really quickly found that it didn't really matter. Especially, I decided to go into the music industry right after I was in college, and most of the people I worked with didn't go to college, or didn't care that I went to college, and certainly didn't care that I went to a good college.
Yeah.
So I felt even less. I felt even more at ease very quickly, because I just realized that it's not that it didn't matter, but I cared about it. I cared about it far more than anybody else did. And it just wasn't as important. But what I learned in the process and how I got there, and being able to, all those things were so applicable to being successful. That's what I found very quickly is that, oh, I'm much more prepared to take on this type of lifestyle and be able to work hard, which was awesome.
I think, so when you go into an interview, right, and that's always a nerve-wracking situation, or even applying for a job, I think can be something that feels like pretty stressful because you're putting yourself out there, you're submitting yourself up to see if you even get a call back. It's very much like applying for college in some respects. But I think I would guess that when you were applying for jobs, you weren't thinking, I'm really good at Phrygian scales and music theory. What were the things that you felt like you were really good at? What were the things that, like, when you went into the interview, you were going to be able to say, I can do X, Y, and Z? And how have those things developed over time as you've gotten more work experience?
Yeah. Honestly, a lot of it's the preparation, knowing how to prepare for something, knowing how to prepare for basically a presentation, because you're presenting yourself in these things. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I present things or perform in college. That was huge for me. And I learned those skills because I was a music major. I think if you're a smart person that can really apply your life skills to whatever you're doing, I mean, I just think that you'll be able to take out what you need from something that you did every day for 4 years.
For sure.
It'll come up a lot, and that's really kind of how I went into it and what I realized very, very quickly in the interviewing process.
Do you have a role that allows you now to hiring decisions, to add people to your team? What are you looking for as someone that is, you've got this really diverse set of responsibilities that you're working on that touch on so many different fields? What are you looking for when a resume comes across your desk or when you're in an interview talking to a candidate?
I mean, so again, I'm in sales market. I have a lot of different things under my purview, but I can't tell you what anybody's major is that works for me that I've interviewed. I don't know. I'm in sales. I mean, I don't look for that. I mean, great if you if you have a business degree, but it's not something that I really look for. I want to see the candidate's work experience to see that they can collaborate, that they've been around colleagues. That's something that's really important to me. The work experience and where they've been and how they present and their versatility in explaining ideas and explaining solutions, that's so much more important to me than the degree. I care that they have a degree. I think that that's a really good thing, but it's not completely necessary for where I'm at. I think that, like I come from a family where every person in my family has a graduate degree except for me. My parents, my sister, all my first cousins, all of their parents. I'm the only person without a graduate degree. And for a long time, that was a huge hang up of mine. But as I get older, I realize that I just, those things are important, but not necessarily all the time. And as I hire more and more people, I just realize like, yeah, that's important for some things, like you have to have that if you want to be a doctor or a therapist or whatever, but like, not all the time,
Did you, we're almost out of time, but I'm just sort of curious about, this might be the wrong word, but just like a sense of courage around your, what your choices that you made, or like a sense of confidence or belief in yourself as you were making these decisions about what you were doing with your career, decision maybe not to do something, decision to do something. Is that something that you feel like you have a lot of, or is it something that has had to grow over time? What's your sense of courage in this space?
Yeah. I think you have to, when you're young and you're in your early 20s, you have to do the thing that you feel is best for you, which is really, really hard, especially in the face of society in general, or what everybody else is saying that you need to do in college, or what your parents are saying.
Yeah.
Luckily, my parents were always supportive of me. But at the same time, you have to, it's hard. It's really, really hard. And I think the best thing a parent can do, and my parents did, was to say, hey, you know what, figure it out.
Yeah.
You figure it out, which was great, which was so helpful.
Sweet. So parting advice from Blake is figure it out. No, that was awesome. That was really great. I'm so glad we got a chance to have you here on the show today and get to meet you, and just seeing different pathways people have to really exciting and interesting careers, I think, can be tremendous experience for our listeners. So thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
We are next week coming back to you with the second segment in our Financial Aid Awareness Month. We are going to be covering the newly announced changes to the SAT. They're going to be doing some online digital versions of their test. No more paper and pencil, which is really, really new. And we're going to have our friends from Arbor Bridge on to unpack that. And we'll also talk about the impact of test optional policies for public universities. So a really rich show next week. Won't be as good as this one with Blake. He's really a one-time guest, but you should tune in anyway, because it's going to be fantastic. In the meantime, have a great week, and we'll see you here next time.